Myles Sanderson is still at large, but just hours ago, 3 RCMP cars rushed by us on a back road of the First Nation.
Tonight, the hunt for a suspect in the James Smith Cree Nation mass stabbing continues.
When we talk about Indigenous girls, especially out there, she was a role model in the community.
Hundreds attend a vigil for an Indigenous woman killed in Winnipeg.
I think it's just such a great thing to learn about, and people should have to learn about it because it's part of our country's history.
And a Winnipeg student says he wanted to bring awareness to missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. The mass stabbing in Saskatchewan has dominated headlines all weekend long. APTN News reporter Priscilla Wolfe leads off our coverage tonight.
I'm Priscilla Wolfe in Weldon, Saskatchewan, near James Smith Cree Nation. The area was tense all weekend as police searched for 2 men charged with murder in a mass stabbing. 10 are dead and at least 18 injured. The First Nation is covered with crime tape as multiple scenes are being processed. Yesterday, RCMP reported that one of the men was found dead. Myles Sanderson was discovered in these bushes. It's not known how he died, but RCMP did say the injuries did not appear self-inflicted. Myles Sanderson is still at large, but just hours ago, 3 RCMP cars rushed by us on a back road of the First Nation, near where Damien was found. RCMP released another alert and we found ourselves surrounded by police. They told us to leave the area and seek shelter, which we did for our safety. As we left the community, we noticed military personnel speaking to residents at their homes. And not long after, the RCMP were setting up a blockade in a large area.
For more now, we have Priscilla Wolfe joining us. Priscilla and video journalist Tamara Pimentel are near James Smith Cree Nation. Priscilla, good to see you. Can you tell us a bit about what the community is saying tonight?
Well, Dennis, we have been speaking to people in the community unofficially off camera because they were told not to speak to the media. But what they are telling us is that they've been very stressed and it's been really hard for a lot of them to sleep at night. That's in Weldon and at the James Smith Cree Nation.
Few people, like you say, are talking right now as they grieve their loved ones. Any confirmation on victims?
Well, Leanne did speak to one of the spouses of one of the victims a few days ago to confirm that someone had passed, but they have not officially given any information out yet. We think that will be happening soon, but not today.
Priscilla, you were right in the middle of the scene when they announced that the latest dangerous person alert. Can you describe the scene for us?
Well, Tamara and myself were driving on the main road at the James Smith Cree Nation just before noon Saskatchewan time today, and there were about 3 police cars with their lights on that passed us. And within a couple minutes, the alert came on our phones telling us that there was a sighting of Myles Sanderson on the reserve, which we just happened to be at. And it seems like it happened right where we were. We were near the spot where they supposedly found Myles Sanderson's body. Within a couple of minutes, we were surrounded by several police cars who were setting up a blockade on the main reserve, or the main reserve's road. And we did speak to an officer who told us we needed to get off the main road and to safety, so we proceeded off the reserve. And we did notice a lot of police presence as well as military presence.
Priscilla, any updates on that search for Myles Sanderson?
As of now, no, because we did leave the reserve. There hasn't been anything issued since we left. I think that the blockade has gotten bigger and that there has been more presence on the reserve of police and military since we left.
Priscilla, any idea when we might hear from leadership there?
Well, Dennis, there was a press release that was sent yesterday telling us that there's going to be a press conference on the James Smith Cree Nation on Thursday morning. So we believe that the leadership will speak to us then.
Priscilla, we appreciate the work you and Tamara and Leanne, everybody doing out there. Appreciate it. Stay safe.
Thank you, Dennis.
And Saskatchewan RCMP have now confirmed that Myles Sanderson is not in the James Smith First Nation and remains at large. The killings that took place in Saskatchewan over the weekend have touched all corners of the country, and that includes the Trudeau government in Ottawa. Joining us to talk about the government's response is Minister of Indigenous Services Canada, Patty Hajdu. Minister Hajdu is joining us from the Liberal Caucus retreat in Vancouver. Minister Hajdu, thanks for taking some time for us. What were your thoughts when you heard about the events that occurred in the area of the James Smith Cree Nation on Sunday?
Oh, just obviously complete shock and horror and grief at what the community must be going through. I obviously first read about it and then was briefed shortly thereafter, and have been in touch with the leadership, community leadership, and indeed regional and provincial leadership, First Nations leadership since then. Obviously, this is a very ongoing and fluid situation, terrifying for the community, but also extremely, extremely devastating. I mean, almost everyone is personally impacted. Many people have multiple family members that are hurt or deceased, and so it's a very, very traumatic event for the region and the nation.
Now, like you say, you've been in touch with leadership and others. Can you tell us a bit about what sorts of supports the federal government is offering to the community during this time?
Well, in the conversations that I've had with community leadership as well as some of the other regional and provincial leaders, we've made it very clear that we'll be there financially and practically to support the community really with whatever they need. So this would include, for example, on the ground mental health and trauma support, support for families in terms of extraordinary costs, transportation costs, support to help families who are scattered across the province with injured loved ones in terms of hotel costs and food costs. There might be, for example, extraordinary expenses around clothing or other kinds of things. And so I'm working and have formally communicated with the community leadership that we'll be there for those costs, including, for example, supporting funeral costs. Terrible to have to say, but I mean, these are extraordinary expenses, and it's more than money, though. It is about supporting the community with some of the practical needs that they're going to need in the short term, and then obviously as we get through this very traumatic, scary period, looking at those medium and longer term goals that the community will set for themselves.
Like you say, things are still pretty fluid, especially in the community. Do you know how quickly, though, some of those more practical needs could begin flowing from the federal government to the community?
Some of them already are, and we're working through a coordinating table where there are a number of different partners working to support the community, including Canadian Red Cross and some provincial supports. So there is a coordinating table, and Indigenous Services Canada has 2 representatives there. We've also ensured that the community knows that if they need assistance with the coordination, we can also put bodies in place to do that. I continue to have conversations at the local level, but also at the regional level and provincial level to reassure First Nations leaders that we'll be there for them, and that really they all have my cell phone number. They use it, and they can call at any time should there be any kinds of challenges in accessing any of those supports.
Minister, we'll leave it there, but appreciate you taking some time for us.
Thank you very much, Dennis.
Time for a quick break. Still to come, hundreds turn out for a vigil to honor an Indigenous woman murdered in Manitoba. Welcome back. A vigil was held Friday evening at the Manitoba Legislature for a young Indigenous woman who was the victim of a homicide in Steinbach, Manitoba. Our Daryl Stranger has more.
Hundreds gathered Friday night for a candlelight vigil in front of Manitoba's legislature for 20-year-old Michaela Gerard-Rusin. She was identified as the victim of a homicide in Steinbach, Manitoba in late August after her body was found on a remote ATV trail. The suspect, 20-year-old Josh Benoit, has been arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Gerard-Rusin's cousin says the death has been hard on the family.
It's been hard, a lot of crying, a lot of asking why did this happen, It's been rough these 4 days. We had a sacred fire at my auntie's. I was up all night, all day, supporting Michaela. I was up for 4 days straight, just wanting to be there for her, showing that I care for her and that the family, loves her. It's definitely big hole in her family, it's unfortunate what happened to her.
Former AFN Regional Chief Kevin Hart is Gerard-Rusin's uncle. He said she was a role model for young Indigenous women.
When you talk about Indigenous girls, especially out there, she was a role model in the community. She was someone that grew up in the inner city, went through the programming at Rossbrook House, later became a mentor and a staff member there. So she shared her life experiences and liked experiences with the kids that she mentored.
Zastry echoed the same thoughts as Hart.
She was going to help people, be better than themselves. She was always up front, trying to make sure you're okay, doing well. She was a very sweet person.
Daryl Stranger, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
We're always looking for your feedback. Here's how you can continue the conversation. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca or leave a comment on our website. That's aptnnews.ca. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. A high school graduate is using his photography skills to bring awareness to the issue of missing and murdered women in Winnipeg. Sav Jonesa brings us this story.
Kale Clements wanted to bring attention to the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people, but didn't really know where to start. The recent high school graduate from Winnipeg, Manitoba, took a class in his final year called Current Topics in First Nations, Métis, and Inuit Studies.
The class should be mandatory in all schools across the country. I think it's just such a great thing to learn about, and people should have to learn about it because it's part of our country's history.
As a non-Indigenous Canadian, the course really opened his eyes to Indigenous issues, and he felt compelled to act.
I'm tired of pretending like I'm not enough to change anything in the world. I kind of wanted to just send a message.
His final project was a photographic essay inspired by Jamie Black's Red Dress Project. He photographed the places where missing or murdered women were last seen or found, accompanied with a red dress and a written piece about each woman. Scott Hansen, his teacher at Kildonan East High School, assigned the project, and when Kale handed his in, he was moved.
Placing the photographs, I had them all on my table, and I was reading his essay as I read them, and it's kind of paired together. And just seeing the dedication and the work that he put into it, and hearing the backstories of the women that he researched was really emotional.
Hansen is Métis and says the course is essential for everyone to understand the Indigenous experience in Canada.
The course covers so many different topics that include things about the economy, things about treaties, things about the land that we're on, the land that I teach on in Treaty 1, and kind of we look at how some of those things, including residential schools and other topics, how they kind of work together to kind of create some of the issues that we're facing today here in Winnipeg and across Canada.
Clement says the course provided a much deeper understanding for him.
I just thought they were very taken advantage of in this modern day, and I think that it's more about how the system affects them and how they were kind of born into a bad scenario more than it was never their fault.
Students come to the course with a range of experience.
I had students who know much more than I do, who've participated in ceremonies and in their own cultures for years and years, since they were born. And I've had kids who knew nothing about the topic, or very little, from kind of what they've pieced together from other courses and other things that they've studied. And I think I also had a couple kids who were newcomers to Canada and who really didn't know anything about Indigenous culture and people, and they were really excited to learn a little bit more.
The Truth and Reconciliation Commission's final report has Education for Reconciliation and its calls to action, with number 62 requesting age-appropriate curriculum on residential schools, treaties, and Aboriginal peoples' historical and contemporary contributions to Canada, a mandatory education requirement for kindergarten to grade 12 students. Clement's project supports this call to action and shows why it continues to be important.
Even if the kids knew nothing going into this course, they're taking away that we've got lots of people to look after, and it's everyone's job to be involved and to learn and to educate themselves.
It's projects like these that help when resources are being taken away. According to the nonprofit Indigenous Watchdog, many programs, like Ontario's recent removal of Indigenous content in their elementary science curriculum, are stalling out despite the majority of Canadians wanting to support it. Sav Jonesa, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Time to step aside for another quick break. Coming up, questions over the need to put down a mother bear. Stick around. Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. Our social media editor sent this one in. Jesse Andrushko was in the White Shell Park east of Winnipeg over the weekend. You can see part of the Big Dipper among the Northern Lights over Falcon Lake. Lots of pictures of the Northern Lights from Manitoba this week. Send your photos to share at aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now here's Wednesday's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 24 in Halifax, 23 in Fredericton, 24 in Kuujjuaq, 14 in Nain, sunny and 26 for Montreal, 24 in Chibougamau, sunny and 26 in Sault Ste. Marie, 24 under the sun in North Bay, sunny and 25 in Thunder Bay, 23 and sunny in Sioux Lookout, 23 in God's Lake and Norway House, sunny and 27 in Winnipeg, 28 in Dauphin. 33 is the high for Regina, 30 and sunny in Saskatoon, 20 in Meadow Lake, showers, and 21 in La Ronge. In northern Alberta, rain and 19 for Grand Prairie, Peace River, Fort McMurray, and Fort Chip. 34 in Medicine Hat, 33 in Lethbridge. 20 in Vancouver, 27 with showers in Kamloops. 14 with rain in Prince George, showers, and 15 in Smithers. 15 in Old Crow, rain, and 18 in Whitehorse. 12 for Yellowknife, 14 in Norman Wells. 8 and cloud in Sax Harbor, rain, and 6 for Paulatuck. Showers and 13 in Whale Cove, 10 with rain in Cambridge Bay. Plus 4 in Resolute, 8 with showers in Joe Haven. Last week, a mother bear was shot dead near Calgary by Alberta Fish and Wildlife officers, leaving her 3 cubs to survive without her. Some people say that there was no need to kill the bear and other options could have been taken. APTN's Chris Stewart has more.
I think it's much better than anything. Nicole Robertson is a former journalist and lives in the Bragg Creek, Redwood Meadows area. The location has lots of bush and normally has lots of berries for wildlife. But Robertson says the recent drought forced a mother bear into the residential area to find food for her cubs. And that cost the mother bear her life when she was shot by Alberta Fish and Wildlife officers.
When you're providing for your cubs, in this instance, I could see how, a mother bear would be looking for anything that she possibly could to help feed her cubs.
The 3 cubs climbed a tree and officers left. The siblings eventually climbed down and left. But Robertson is worried that without their mother, life will be hard.
I think about cubs. I think about what's going to happen to them. What's going to happen to, children that are left, cubs, on their own, foraging through a forest where they don't have now a role model to show them where to get certain things, how to get certain food.
In 2018, APTN told the story of Masqua, a bear cub found badly hurt and brought to the Cochrane Ecological Institute. They helped nurse Masqua back to health. The institute has been helping orphan bears since 1986 and other animals since the 60s. Their license to rehab bears was not renewed this year. Cleo Smeaton, the president, says it was because they took in 2 orphan cubs outside the allowed months to do so. She is fighting in court to get her license restored. Smeaton says research done in the United States shows that bears will stay in the woods and only leave when there is no food.
People of Bragg Creek know her. They know her cubs, and she hasn't done anything wrong. And she's come out of the bush because there's no food for her there. And then in Durango, where the Colorado Fish and Wildlife did their research, they found that when there's drought, as there has been for 2 years here, bears will come in. But once the forage in the bush recovers, they won't come in, they'll go back. They prefer to eat their own stuff. They don't prefer to eat McDonald's hamburgers.
Smeaton says they have a joint proposal with the University of Calgary to study bear habits and hopes the province approves it and bring bears back to their large refuge. She would like to find these 3 cubs and include them in the study.
The intention, at no cost to government, if we had the research cubs here, was for the university to monitor those cubs for a minimum of 5 years. And then the speculation or unanswered questions may well be answered. Then we'd know whether or not it was justifiable to kill cubs or not.
In a written statement, the Alberta Environment and Parks told APTN, "This is an unfortunate situation caused by human actions leaving unsecured garbage, which became an attractant for bears actively foraging this time of year to accumulate fat stores for winter. We encourage Albertans to take precautions and secure any attractants when living or recreating in bear country to protect themselves and Alberta's bears." Local residents are meeting Wednesday night to find ways to protect the bears from harm. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Bragg Creek, Alberta.
Thanks, Chris. That's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Tuesday. For the very latest, visit our website, aptnnews.ca, and never miss a story by downloading the APTN News app. Stick around, an encore episode of Face to Face is up next. Our guest is advocate Tanya Cameron. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for being with us. Have a great night.